welcome to everybody who's here. I'm Anne Choquette, CEO of The List, and I'm so thrilled for this conversation. Two amazing authors. We have Hitha Palepu, who is here. This is Hitha's book, or one of her books here, Hitha, who is a phenomenal reader, book supporter, does 5 smart reads on her Instagram, like really the ultimate booster, connoisseur, curator of great books. So I'm so happy to have her here. And Jo Piazza, this is her new book, The Sicilian Inheritance. This is an early draft, but I think this is what the cover looks like. And it's somewhere in my
This is what it looks like. I've got
here.
it. I've got it right here. Yeah.
I have one of your books, another, this is actually one of my favorites.
I know.
I should have brought your whole stack. I think the rest of them are not here. So in any case, I'm excited for this conversation. I'm going to let Hitha and Jo take it away. I'm going to put notes in the chat about how to support Jo, and please feel free to ask your questions. And I'm going to mute myself and let Hitha go from here.
Thanks, Anne. Jo, it's so great to see you.
Hi.
Something I like to ask when I start any interview is I'd love for you to introduce yourself with all of your hyphens, because you are a woman of many multitudes and someone I admire and have admired for a very long time.
Oh, thank you. Right now, I'm a woman who can't figure out how to charge my damn computer, which is amazing. I'm like, can you just work for like this important thing I have to do today? Yes, I am Jo Piazza. I am an author, a podcaster, now a social media brand marketing monster in so many ways. And I started my career as a journalist, as a lot of us did, and have watched as media has evolved and blown up and become strange and weird over the years. I started writing books about 12 years ago and making podcasts about 8 years ago. And since then, I've just kind of been rolling with the punches of, how to navigate this crazy world of media. 4 years ago, I started a podcast called Under the Influence, where it was a deep dive into social media and how it was impacting our lives. And I thought I would do 8 episodes, and now we've done 105, because social media is media now and nothing is changing. And so, yeah, The Sicilian Inheritance is my most recent novel. It comes out next Tuesday. It's available for pre-order. I hate the word pre-order. I think it's the stupidest word in the English language, and I wish authors didn't have to say it over and over and over again. But alas, this is how book marketing works. And I think it's my best novel yet. It is a story that's so close to my family. It's based on my family history. But more than that, it's fun. It's an adventure. It's a book to get you out of a reading slump. And I wrote it because I just wanted to enjoy reading books again. So I wrote what I wanted to read.
And as someone who has read all of your books and has been a fan for a very long time, I have to say this is my favorite. And I've said that I think every time I read one of your books. This is truly such a special book. It has everything I love and all the genres I love, from aggressively feminist like characters and storyline to romance to thriller to dual perspective, brilliantly executed. I call this book the feminist love child of The Bear and The Godfather, set in Sicily and Philadelphia, 2 of my favorite places on earth. And if you hadn't written this so specifically for yourself and for your family, I would have thought you just wrote it just for me.
Also that is the thing. I was also like, no, it's for you.
This is for me. It's my 40th birthday present. So thank you very much.
Totally. Yeah, no, it's for all of us. And I love what you just said about like crossing so many genres, and because that's what I wanted to do. I'm like, this book can appeal to so many people. And you know who hates that? Publishers and your agents. They're like, but this isn't like what you usually write. And we don't know, is it a thriller? Is it historical fiction? Like, where do we put it on the shelf? And I'm like, how about you just create a fucking shelf called Books About Badass Women Enjoying Their Goddamn Lives? No one likes it when I say things like that, but it's very interesting. My filter has like really gone out the window after writing this book. And I think it's like this like big Sicilian energy and confidence that I'm like, we're just birthing this into the world. And like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it big.
I love it. Something I love about your books is just how real your characters are. They excel in certain areas of your life, of their lives, and then they're just falling apart, hot messes in others. And they are perfectly messy, which is a reframe you introduced in one of your recent Substack essays.
Yeah.
How do you go about creating these characters?
Yeah, I try to write women who are ambitious, who have agency, and then think about the women that I know, the many ambitious and wonderful, magical women in my lives, and the many ways that the world has been difficult for them. And so I wrote a Substack that I released this morning that I wasn't even planning on doing, and then it just came to me about rethinking the idea of messy women in literature and media generally. Like, you've got all these messy women and like they're alcoholics, they're pill poppers, they've got a mental illness, they're agoraphobic and can't leave the house. And I'm like, how about if we just admit that we're messy and tired and exhausted and sometimes hysterical because the world makes it difficult to be a fucking woman. And like that's why my character, I've got two timelines, a woman in the past and a woman in the present. And my modern day woman is like just at her wit's end. And she's at her wit's end because she wants to run a business and also be a mother and be a good wife. And the world makes that really hard. And so her life is a mess, but not because she is any of those things that we see in A Girl on a Train or Gone Girl or any of the many books with the word girl in the title.
Continuing in this vein, I know that this book is partially inspired by your own family's story. Were Sarah, Rosa, and Serafina inspired by any of your family members or stories about them?
Yeah. So the book is inspired by a family story that has been passed down over and over through the years. My great-great-grandmother, Lorenza Marsala, was murdered in Sicily before she could join her husband and her sons here in America. And like that story has been a game of telephone over the past 100 years. But like we are Italian Americans. My family is a bunch of liars and storytellers and myth makers, and they like love to tell a story over a drink. So like no one knows what is actually true in this story. And I took that little nugget. I was like, what would it be like to be a woman left alone in Sicily while her husband goes to America for 12 years? Would it be kind of awesome because, you're free of getting pregnant every single year? Or would it be dangerous? Like there's mafia bandits and everything. And I kind of ran with that nugget, but I didn't want to know any of the real story while I was writing the book because I wanted to write fiction. And I wrote the novel, I turned it in, and then because I am nothing if not an incredibly thorough content creator, I decided I had to solve the murder in real life. And so we have a true crime podcast, which drops in like an hour, I think, where I go back to Sicily to solve the real life murder. It's White Lotus meets Only Murders in the Building, and it is me taking 3 small children to Sicily to solve a 100-year-old murder. And like no spoilers, but like we found out some really crazy shit.
I can't wait to listen to it at all. Like this
really
is
good. It's like shockingly good.
What is it called? Joe,
Also,
what's it called? I'll put the link in.
The trailer is up right now, and the first episode will be live short, maybe by the time we're off. It's also called The Sicilian Inheritance because I am a branding monster. And I'm like, let's make this easy for everyone. You want the Sicilian Inheritance? You get it here like this, you get it here like this. Buy all the things.
I'm going to need a big Sicilian energy shirt too. So I hope you have merch.
Yeah. I've got big Sicilian energy shirts. I've got hot Sicilian shirts. We've got all the things. Hold on for 1 second while I grab my charger because my computer is just being a massive asshole right now.
While she's doing that, I'm going to put the link to the oh, it's such a long, hold on. That's not a great link. I will find you all a link in a second.
I also want to use this time to plug Joe's Substack, which is one of the best works of content that on Substacks I subscribe to because it's podcast, it's newsletter, it's essays. And if you pre-order your book and forward her receipt, you get a lifetime subscription to the paid podcast. So be sure to do that now that she's
Everyone do it. Everyone do. I mean, again, I talked about this also on the Substack about how I hate the word pre-order and I spend a lot of time with readers. I just went to a big reading retreat down in Virginia, and readers are like, we don't understand. Like every author we know is participating in like the pre-order Olympics. It's like this giveaway and win this trip and get the author to your town. And like, they're like constantly asking us to do this. And I was like, they're not doing it because they like it. They're doing it because the publisher only looks at those pre-orders, marketing department only looks at those pre-orders. And if they're not high, they're not going to invest in you more than 2 days after the book goes on sale. So we're doing this just to keep our like book baby alive long enough so readers can discover them, because it takes readers a long time to discover books. So I would love to never tell you to pre-order, but literally everyone on this call should order 2 copies right now.
Yes, makes a great gift. Great for
Great
Mother's
gift.
Day. Great for Father's Day, because
Great
my
for
dad,
Father's Day.
my
Mhm.
dad could not put it down. And
I
his
love that.
attention span is not great these days. So the fact that you gave him a book that he was up till 2 a.m. reading.
Yeah.
You mentioned
love that.
something in your earlier answer of what was the life like for Serafina and these women whose husbands left for United States for decades. Was it awesome or was it kind of awful? And these were women who were trad wives, not out of choice, but out of circumstance. And so your commentary about the modern day trad wife movement has me thinking a lot about Serafina and the women she was in community with.
Yeah.
What do you think they would think of this modern day trad wife movement? And what kind of TikToks would they be creating to counter it?
Oh my God, this is such a good question. And now you're making me want to make TikToks from Serafina's point of view. And if I had any energy for TikTok, I would do it. So yeah, so Serafina, you know, she is a young girl in Sicily at the turn of the century. She gets pregnant when she's real young. I think she's 14 in the book. We changed the age a bunch of times. Doesn't want to have a baby, doesn't want to get married, but that's what you did when you were a woman in Sicily. You became a wife and a mother, and you didn't really have other options. And when her husband leaves, when all of the men leave, because 1 million men left Sicily during this time period, her and the other women in town get to have independence for the first time. They take over the men's jobs. They learn to read, they learn to write, they learn to do accounting. They're buying and selling land. And it's a moment of real freedom for them. And it's dangerous because when the men return, they don't like it. The men in charge of the country don't love it. But they do feel a real freedom and a camaraderie, and they don't necessarily want to return to that life when they have to, when they get sent over to America to finally meet their husbands. And I think that those women would look at this trad wife moment and this false nostalgia for a time where gender roles were so defined by a man being the breadwinner and a woman doing all of the domestic labor, and just cry over it, just wail over it, because they like were so eager for a life of freedom and independence. So to see women willingly go back into those roles would be heartbreaking for them.
What
I'm
kind
gonna
of
I'm gonna send all of the trad wives the book, actually. So I have been surreptitiously collecting all of their mailing addresses under the pretense of sending them sourdough, and I shall be sending them the Sicilian inheritance instead. Surprise, ladies!
I have this vision of Serafina literally like stitching up wounds and caring for people and like yelling at the camera of this is like of all the things like they should not be doing. It's just my little fantasy of mine. This is your, I believe, 8th book in 12 years.
12th book in 12 years.
12th book in 12 years. So you've obviously experienced seismic changes in publishing.
Yeah.
You said you become a marketing monster for this book out of circumstance, not out of choice. What has changed in publishing that has basically forced authors to become one-person marketing machines? And do we think this is going to continue, or do you think we're hitting a breaking point as authors and publishers and as readers to have that tolerance for this kind of marketing spree?
I mean, I think we're hitting a breaking point and it's not going to change. I think it's just going to get worse. It's interesting, you know, like helping readers find books, like just discovering content has always been hard. And since I started doing it in about 2009, Rachel actually probably remembers better when I started writing books because she threw me a party for the first one. But it was hard, but also it's like, okay, great. If you get the book in People magazine, you've got like a really good shot of reaching a lot of readers. And now there's just so much content, the majority of it terrible, that is taking people's attention in so many different directions finding books that you want to read is harder than ever. We also see the big celebrity book clubs sucking the air out of the room because it's so hard to find content. And so you're like, I want to read what everyone's reading. Someone tell me what to do. And that God bless those clubs for getting eyes on books. And I can talk about this because we are not like them. One of my last books was a GMA book club pick. And that was amazing. I'm like, oh my gosh, you have it on this celebrity book club. All of a sudden you sell 6,000 copies. Without that national exposure, it is an uphill battle to get to that number. And then to get on the New York Times bestseller list that will like help you keep going. Every author I know is at their breaking point. And I have been doing book events like where I'm in conversation with like some names that you'd be like, that person's big. They're set. They've like got this figured out. They don't have to do any work. And they're like, why am I like literally like still like hanging on and like so desperate to like do every single little thing? Why is no one helping me with this? Like, why is it so hard to reach readers? Unless you're a book about fairy sex, then you're fucking set. But I think we're going to see a lot of authors drop out of the game because this job has become so much more than they signed up for. Like, I can write books all day long. I don't want to sell them all day long.
And this also, I think, has a parallel with your career as a journalist. You have pivoted into producing podcasts, writing a Substack, monetizing that Substack. Can you talk a little bit about how that journey has prepared you for the shift in how you sell books as an author or vice versa?
Yeah, no, I mean, it really has prepared me. I've essentially become, without even realizing it or wanting to, a one-woman media company. I'm like, all right, I make the podcasts. I like have the Substack. I have all of these things. Because as we've also seen media companies not just like be constricted, but also they don't pay freelancers anything anymore, right? So I'm like, I have to make this content myself. I have to try to monetize all of it myself. And it's not easy. I'm also, I have a podcast about creators and women influencers, and that world isn't easy either. And we're all kind of vying for the same eyeballs and limited attention of people. So yeah, I think all of this prepared me to do this and to launch this book. Like I said, I think this is the best book I've ever written. I love it so much. I want it to do all of the things. If it doesn't, I'm probably going to like take a step back and be like, I did all the things to launch this great book into the world, and I don't know where to go from here.
I can empathize with that. And I think a lot of authors and people who work in publishing or media in this Zoom can empathize with that as well.
Yeah. It is interesting. I've had, meetings with the people that are helping me launch this book into the world, and they're like, we're just crossing our fingers for like a crazy TikTok. And I'm like, that, my friends, is not a marketing strategy.
No, a lot of my questions have been focused on Serafina, the woman in the turn of the century Italy. Let's talk a bit about Sarah, because I felt so seen by her. A woman who feels like she's constantly choosing and failing with whatever choice she does make, feels exhausted by just what it means to be a woman and a mom alive in 2024, and someone who's very devoted to her family, and specifically one member of her family in general. Was Sarah inspired by kind of the reality of the mother life we see right now versus what is portrayed on social media? And how did you kind of imagine her as you wrote her?
Yeah, no, I mean, she really was. First off, Sarah is a butcher. She's a butcher and a chef in Philadelphia. And I wanted to give her a career that we don't often see women have in books. I came up on like the 90s rom-coms where everyone was a journalist in New York City. And I vowed two things: I would never write a journalist again, and I would never set a book in New York again. So this is set very much in Philadelphia and then Sicily. We go from Philly to Sicily. It's a pretty Philly-centric novel, despite, going abroad. And I wanted to make her someone who loved food, because I also wanted to make this book delicious in every way. Like, the goal of the book is to like make you want to eat food, to take a trip, to like go have like midday sex with your partner because you're like, that was hot, what I just read. I want everything about it to be totally delicious. So I made her a butcher who like loves and respects good food. She's like on the cover of Philly Mag for having like this hot new restaurant. And then it all kind of falls apart because being a woman business owner and also trying to be a mom and a wife is really, really hard in our world. And I've watched a lot of female chefs struggle with that in Philly and in other cities. And, you know, a lot of what I talk to women about on Under the Influence and other women on social media is just how hard it is to juggle all of the things. And that was really like where Sarah came from. I wanted her to be curious and excited about going to Sicily to like try to claim her family's inheritance, but I also wanted her to be in a place of like just complete change and upheaval because the world is difficult to be a woman in. And again, I wanted that to have really nothing to do with a man. She is going through a divorce, but like that's not why she goes. Like I wanted it to be the opposite of like the eat, pray, love. Like I'm getting over a bad relationship, even though Liz Gilbert, you could totally blurb the book if you want. But it was like, I'm doing this to figure out who I am and how to be a woman in the world who wants more out of life.
And Rosie, the matriarch of the family for Sarah, kind of is the reason she goes on this trip, and Rosie is such a spitfire and
I love her.
has such gumption.
Yeah.
And I would love for you to talk a little bit more about Rosie and kind of her being the bridge between the two Sarahs.
Yeah. So Rosie is Sarah's aunt, and she leaves a deed for land in Sicily to Sarah when she passes away that may or may not be real. But she also leaves her a letter saying, look, I know that everything feels really hard for you and terrible for you right now. Here is this deed to land that my mother left me. You need an adventure. You need to go over there and figure out if this is real. If it is, sell it. Use the money to rebuild your life. And I wanted that to be very unapologetic too, because, you know, what does fix a lot of things? Money. And like it can also be hard for women to have access to that kind of money, to that kind of capital and that kind of investment. And I mean, Rosie was the kind of woman that like lived her life on her own terms in a time when women weren't allowed to. And that was really important to me. You know, she grew up in the 50s and the 60s. She never got married. She had a lot of boyfriends. And she's like confident and bold and brash and like moves through the world with that confidence. And Sarah always loved that about her and, you know, really internalized that and wanted that in her own life and found it so hard. And, you know, I think she does like think a lot in the book about like Rosie was able to have those kinds of things then because she didn't get married and didn't have a child. And she starts to think, can I have it all? Can I have all those things?
I hope all of these questions have piqued all of your interest, if you haven't read the book yet, in these really remarkable women that Jo's created. Something that I think I see in all of your books, but really came out in this one, is how fairly secondary the men are.
Yeah. No, they're not.
Really
they're not
is.
You could take them or leave them in the plot, and the book would be fine. It would be fine.
And I think it's such a refreshing book to read, given that most of the content we are bombarded by, the books, the movies, the shows, still very much lead from the male point of view or has one, maybe a few women. We've only recently started seeing these sweeping women-led stories reach any kind of traction, let alone not even at a critical mass.
Wow.
What was your kind of approach you just said the men, you could take it or leave it?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like I wanted this to be a book led by and dominated by women. The male characters are very, very secondary. I was actually joking with my friend Casey last night that you know, when we cast this movie, there is like a very sexy male romantic lead, and there's not lead, but character that Sarah has a fling with, and you know, there's some sex in a beach cave. But we're like, we are gonna cast all of these strong women and then get to Italy and just like find some dude on the beach, and he'll be like, oh, but what are my lines? And we'll be like, it doesn't matter. You don't really have to speak. Like, we don't actually need you to like do anything except just like kind of be here, and like you're gonna like make some fish in the kitchen, and then you're gonna like, you know, do your thing in the cave, and then bye. It was nice seeing you. It was nice seeing you. Because yeah, I mean, for so long we see books about women that are then really books about men. Like who is a woman in relationship to this man? And that's, I wanted to write the opposite of that. Who is a woman in relationship to her world and also other women? I mean, one of the big focuses of the book is women coming together to help other women and to lift other women up, and how we are all the backbones of each other's lives. And so yeah, like those are the things that I wanted to come through for the audience.
Yeah, and doing it imperfectly, because there's certainly some dubious choices made by some of these characters
There
on the
are.
guise of help, but really was kind of messed up.
Yeah, yeah. It gives book clubs a lot of things to chew on, right? It's like, all
Yeah.
right, like what is the morality behind that decision? Like what are the ethical implications of that decision? And I also enjoy writing like imperfect in a way and flawed women characters that you are going to question them, but also enjoy them. There's like been a lot of talk about like, oh my gosh, can you like a flawed woman character? And I think too many people write flawed women characters that are just like not that interesting, and like you can't relate to them. You can relate to our characters and also think that like there is something very inherently wrong with them.
If we're fan casting your movie, who is your dream actors to play Serafina, Rosie, and Sarah?
Yeah, Serafina is the hardest one, because I mean, I would really want to cast like a great Sicilian actress who's up and coming, and like, you know, almost like this would be like her first big role, and she also has to play her, you know, from a teenager to like much later in life. And right now we're thinking about, I think Rose Byrne was an option for Sarah, and then the woman who played Villanelle, in that wonderful, wonderful series. Hold on, I'm looking. Yes, I'm looking her up right now. We were just talking about that at lunch yesterday.
Jodie
We're like,
Comer?
yes, yes. We're like, she would be a wonderful Juicy. And Juicy is this Sicilian character who is just like a complete badass, who is like my favorite character that I've ever written. We're also, I think we're trying to get the script to Lizzie Kaplan right now for Sarah's character, which I would love because I'll watch Lizzie Kaplan do absolutely anything. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, and we're trying to just get the project greenlit right now. So I'm like, well, my agents sometimes ask me, they're like, who's your dream character? And I'm like, the person that's gonna get it made, person that's gonna like get this like to actually go into production. That's my dream. That's my dream. So I do not attach too much credence to like any one actress at this point. I'm like, the one who's gonna like actually make the studio make it. That's my favorite person in the world.
I have a little bit of rapid fire for you before we jump into the questions in the chat.
Let's do it. Yeah.
This is you as a reader, not as an author. So
Right.
Fiction or nonfiction?
Fiction.
Audiobook, physical, or ebook?
Physical.
Red or white wine?
White. I can't have red anymore. I get a headache and I feel crappy, and that sucks because I love red wine.
Cannoli or tiramisu?
Both.
Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Football or football?
Football. Football.
Phillies or Eagles?
Eagles.
And I'm going to jump into some of the questions we have in the chat. So this one's from Kathy. I know you co-authored some books with Christine Pride. Wondered if you could describe your writing process and how it differs if you have a partner.
Yeah, I mean, it's two totally different things, to be honest. Like, I love writing books with the right partner, and I love writing books solo. When I write books solo, I fly by the seat of my pants. I'm like, just like, I have an idea for the book, and I sit down and I write 2,000 words a day, and I don't know what's going to happen, and I like it that way. I'm like, because I think the magic really happens. I didn't know the ending of Sicilian Inheritance, and it's a banger. It really is. And like, I didn't know about some of the characters, and they just showed up and were like, hey, and I'm like, oh, wow, like, you're great. So I love doing that. And it's easier in a lot of ways and also scarier in a lot of ways. When I write with Christine, we outline like crazy because Christine has to outline. She freaks out every time I say that I fly by the seat of my pants. So we outline an entire book meticulously in Google Docs before we get started. And then we switch back and forth between like writing one chapter and then editing that chapter, and until the book is finished. And then we kind of flip all of the chapters. Neither of us writes just one character. When we did We Are Not Like Them, we had a white character and a black character, and everyone assumed that like Christine wrote the black character because she's a black woman, and I write the white character. And we're like, no, we wrote both of them. We alternate, who is doing what based off who has time, because we both have a bunch of other jobs. And the great thing about writing with a partner is you just have an ally and an advocate all of the time. And writing alone can feel incredibly lonely, but then you also just kind of have this magical experience that you don't get through a collaboration.
And how was it? I know you also wrote a book with Lucy Sykes. What was that like? Similar in that you had a meticulously outline, or was it a little bit more fluid?
It was a really different partnership, different kind of partnership with Lucy. Yeah. We just different beast altogether. Yeah.
Very different books.
Very different books. Yeah, very different kind of partnership.
If someone was going to come to Philadelphia, what is the perfect food day you would set up for them?
Oh my God, that's so great. That's so great. Okay, so there is a food truck that's on Penn's campus in West Philly called Buoys that I've been going to since I was 18 years old when I went to college at Penn. And it is like sausage, egg, and cheese on a hoagie roll. And it's been like this woman put her kids through college with the Buoys food truck. She's been there. The only difference now is that you can like order it ahead of time and like use Venmo, but it is the same. So I like to start a day with that. And then I like a really nice boozy brunch at Park on Rittenhouse Square, which is a French bistro. Also been there since I was in college. And I mean, it's, a favorite in Philadelphia for a reason. Like the food is great. It's right on Rittenhouse Square, so you can sit outside and it's beautiful. And I like a French onion soup from there. And then for like, you're just going to eat a lot of food. Okay. So like, then I like to go to Zahav, which, is named like one of the best restaurants in Philly all the time for a reason. You have to make a reservation months in advance. It is a prefix Israeli menu. But if you show up at 4:00 and sit at the bar, there's like 6 seats. And you can order food at the bar. If I don't do that, I like to go to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which is right down the street from my house. And they've like won all these James Beard Awards now, so they're very fancy. And they also have a prefix in their fancy dining room, but at the bar you can order a la carte, and they make the best cocktails in the city.
I'm so hungry now.
I know. I mean, well, also, and like the Sicilian Inheritance is filled with food, and I've been talking about food so much as I've been promoting the book, and I'm just like hungry all the time. I've gained 5 pounds in the past week, and I don't really care. But yeah, I just want people to like eat delicious food, drink delicious wine while reading this book, and to enjoy themselves. I've had this idea for a long time, but I started writing the book in earnest during the pandemic, when like we all just wanted to escape our houses. And I do think like a lot of us now want to escape this weird world that we live in. And so Jane Green called this book the perfect travel book. And I'm like, that's what I feel like it is. We're going to transport you somewhere else. And then we're all going to book a trip to Sicily together and eat delicious food. And the single ones among us may have cave sex with some random dude on the beach.
I insist that the single ones do have cave sex
I would prefer it. I mean, I feel like everyone should take one for the team.
I'm gonna do one last call for questions from the audience, but I have one last question is, can we get a cookbook offshoot of this?
Yeah, I'm working on it right now. I have 2 of the recipes ready. And I'm working with my favorite Sicilian chefs, Michael, who owns Irwin's in Philly in the Bach building, to grab me some of their favorite recipes. And yeah, it's in the works.
Cannot wait. And yes, I'm here for the Philly Food and Eagles Crawl, as well as the guided tour of Sicily. And Anne had a question about other movies. She wants Charlotte Walsh, which I know was optioned and even in pre-production, but hasn't had much traction yet. Any update?
Yeah, so Charlotte Walsh was optioned and bought by Amazon before it came out. Julia Roberts was the executive producer, and she was starring in it. And we had a whole writer's room, wrote 8 episodes. It was about to go into production, and then Julia Roberts bailed because she had a dream, as one does. And not that I hold a grudge or talk about it all the time on my podcast. And then, Amazon, because they wanted like a big name, we're like, well, we can only make it if we can get Sandy Bullock. And I'm like, that seems hard. And so it kind of like got put to bed for a little while and then resurrected. It was re-optioned about 6 months ago. And now it's with a bunch of actresses. It's a political book. And so it's been really interesting to, hear why some actresses turn it down. Some of the reasons are they don't want to alienate their fans on the opposite side of the aisle, particularly if they're actresses who are operating brands and businesses other than acting. So that's been really interesting to hear. And yeah, I think it's a story that has even more relevance today than it did when I wrote it in 2016. And hoping that we will see it on the screen, that we have some news about it soon. I know it's with some good people, so let's put all the juju out for that and for Sicilian Inheritance, the movie.
Yes. So your homework number 1 is to order multiple copies of the Sicilian Inheritance.
Many copies of the book. Yes.
You will not regret it. It can be a great hostess gift with like a bottle of Aperol or like an aperitivo or some beautiful olives. All the women in your life for Mother's Day, all the dads in your life for Father's Day, just buy many copies. Make sure you subscribe to Jo's Substack and take advantage of her incredible offer because it really is the smartest and most joyful Substack. I literally get happy when I see it delivered into my inbox, and I don't feel that way about really any email. So
yeah, I don't feel that way about like anyone right now. My husband, my kids.
And then make sure you start listening to the Sicilian Inheritance podcast. It's dropping today, which is amazing.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, wait, is it out yet? I don't even know.
And then if you haven't read Charlotte Walsh, please go pick that up. If you need like hope in politics a bit, I highly recommend reading that and watching Girls on the Bus on Max, which I have really been enjoying.
Good. Yeah.
And I wonder if we can get Melissa Benoist on board for this.
Yeah, we should do that. Let's work on that.
Yeah. They're going to put that in the universe, and also just follow Jo everywhere because she's amazing, and make it your book club book.
It's true. And for book clubs, I'm zooming in and I will be making cannoli live. And if you are local, I'll just come to your house and bring Sicilian wine and cannolis, and we can just like chat about strong women.
Excellent. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and eat, drink, and read Sicilian Inheritance.
All the things.
Thank you so much, Hitha. Thank you, Jo. I usually like to end these with everybody's to-do list. And so get it, LI to-do list. And on that to-do list is buy the book, review the book on Goodreads and Amazon. I don't think you can do an Amazon till it's live.
Not until we're live, yeah.
But you can give it 5 stars on Goodreads and share it, right? So share on social media, buy the book, and give 5 stars on Goodreads. So that's everybody's to-do list. If you buy 4 or 5 and you buy Charlotte Walsh and you sign up for Jo's Substack and the podcast, and then merch, Big Sicilian Energy t-shirt when those come out, you are a one-woman marketing machine and a superstar, and I'm in awe of you perpetually. And also just so grateful to have you in the world telling stories about badass, ambitious women.
Badass, ambitious women. I mean, yeah. We need more of them. But also in books, I genuinely think this is important, in books that bring us joy, because too often we hear about badass, ambitious women, and it's a book that's like real depressing when you finish it. And I'm like, that's not what I want. I want you to feel great after you read this book.
Well, I want you to feel great. So thank you. And thank you, Hitha.
I joined super late and I had one question, and I don't know if, I'm sure maybe you've already heard this, but Beach Reads and Bubbly.
Yes.
This feels like right up her alley.
So we've sent her a copy of it and also asked if she wants to do a giveaway. If everyone would like to message the Instagram influencer, the bookstagrammer, Beach Reads and Bubbly, and say, hey, we just got off a call with Jo. This feels right up your alley. Please do. Please do, because I don't want to bother her again. I
Because
messaged
she's got
her.
all those book clubs, like it's now monthly book clubs all over the
I know.
country that are like based on our book picks.
I know. Yeah. So yeah, let's keep getting her excited about the hot Sicilian. Let's like everyone post about it like right now and tag her and be like, have you read this yet?
Done.
This
We're
is
on
how
it.
we do
Plus, I
things.
think this
This
should
is
be
how-
the list book club. We had a book club last summer.
Oh, yeah, let's
And
do
that was-
that.
Yeah, let's do this.
Let's
as
do
the
that.
list-
Let's
the
make
list
this the list book club pick, and then we'll do like a really fun thing with like the wine and the cannolis and the Sicilian food, and talk about it. And you know, I do like to say I think everyone is an influencer these days. Like there is so much bad content, and we all create good content. So like, let's be an influencer in our world. If we all got influenced to like 5 people, that like really moves the needle.
Great. Done.
Amen.
Amen. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Joe, thank you for your time. Hitha, thank you for your brilliance.
You're
And
all
from
wonderful.
here to the New York Times bestseller list.
From here to the bestseller list, it's the only place we can go.
Yep. Ciao,
Bye,
everyone.
guys.
Bye,
Ciao,
everyone.
ciao.
Oh, ciao.